you know me, no give up on you never. Wanna be with you forever, 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 forever. Oh baby, where we they go, now forward ever, backward never. Them they pray make we run down never, 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 never. I'ma get that low. Girl, you the best I know. Our next move they never know, they never know. Money go check I know. Girl, you the best I know. Our next move they never know, they never know. They never know. They never know. Without you, baby, the journey go too rough. So you know, girl, I be feeling this love. Even when I'm down, you wanna waiting this up. It's not blessing, I'ma no be luck. Baby, nobody feel there like you. Rara, rara. I said nobody feel make me feel the way you do. Rara, rara. I'ma get that low. Girl, you the best I know. Our next move they never know, they never know. Money go check low. Girl, you the best I know. Our next move they never know, they never know. 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 My lady, you know me, no give up on you never. Wanna be with you forever, 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 forever. Oh baby, where we they go, now forward ever, backward never. Them they pray make we run down never, 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 never. I'ma get that low. Girl, you the best I know. Our next move they never know, they never know. Money go check low. Girl, you the best I know. Our next move they never know, they never know. They never know. They never know. Without you, baby, the journey go too rough. So you know, girl, I be feeling.
Are we live?
Check to check, we're live. Hi everybody, thank you for tuning in. We're back on the Hohner YouTube channel, and this is another episode, the last episode before the big World Harmonica Festival next week. Everybody gets ready for. This is episode 144, and I am excited to talk to Paul Messenger for the very first time. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. We tried to hook up in Hamburg when I was there in July, but timing didn't work out.
A lot of traveling, yeah. So
yeah, you
really
headed to
special
Asia.
guest.
You were headed to Asia, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say you're not only a harmonica player, but also a songwriter and a storyteller. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Paul's been working on a unique audio project called The Elvis Show and American Odyssey. And it connects, a lot of harmonica playing, spoken word, personal history. If you got any questions in the chat, let us know. We are happy to answer everything music, whatever related, harmonica related. But yeah, great to have you here. You're in Carolina, right?
North Carolina, although I'm wearing Garnett, Carolina here, so that's actually South Carolina colors. So my Tar Heel brethren would probably look askance at that, but I don't know. I like the color.
Nice. Yeah. Have you been to Spa this year? I've
Yes,
never been.
yes, I was in San Antonio. I played my Jason Ritchie song, I think. Yes, I did. So
Okay.
that was nice. I did Michael Rubin's variety show. That was hilarious, basically. Yeah, I was in Spa.
Crazy that I've never been to Spa yet.
Yeah, that's strange. I'm gonna have to put a bug in their ear to bring you because they'll do stuff like that. I saw Rohan play for the first
Right,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, your last conversation. Let me tell you, I heard him play in a student showcase, and forget about all the virtuosic playing, which is wonderful, of course, but his sound was very special. It caught my ear immediately. And
I believe, yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, it was different and it was special. And that's to me, if you're going to be based in the harmonica part of it. I mean, I've got songwriting and a lot of other things that define me, but if you're gonna, use the instrument as your pathway, your sound is the most important thing. It doesn't
Oh,
matter how
yeah.
many notes you play, it's what you sound like.
That's
And his
so
sound
true.
captured me right away, right away. It was very special.
Yeah, when I talked to him last week, I also told him that that was probably the best third position harmonica melody playing take 5. I've never heard anyone play the melody as good as he did.
Yeah, you said he plays in third position. When I've tried to play it, I mean, I've never really worked it up as a concert piece, but I always did it in third position. So you say fifth position is what Mad Cat did?
I think that's just the version I heard Howard do, so that's
Okay.
what I mostly stuck to, sort of.
Howard's thing. I was in the first Howard Levy workshops in 1991 and 92 in West Virginia, and his thing was choose the harmonica based on where the melody lays the best.
Yeah.
That'll tell you. Forget about the notes and forget about positions. What's the melody? And also, he really believes in singing as a way to define how you play, because every instrument, limits you in some way. Each instrument has its, he says the harmonica giveth and the harmonica taketh away, but every instrument does, and singing is and of course that has some limitations too, but singing, it gives you the least amount of limitations as far as, if you sing something, then you can figure out how to play it. And I've taken that to heart for many years. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, think about it.
And
'Cause,
sound is so important. Like, yeah, I feel like the older any player gets, the more they think about sound.
yeah, it is that way. It's not only sound, it's sound shape. I think the same way other instruments like bass. Some people prefer, these very active bass players. What I'm looking for is a guy with timbre, and sound shape.
Yeah.
I want the shape to be a certain type of way, and the timbre, which has volume to it, a certain type of way. The notes, if the bass player is competent at all, they'll work. And bass is a very good. It's a very good anchor for harmonica. If you think about it, I can tell you a quick story. This is how I met Johnny Sanzone, right? You ever meet Johnny Sanzone?
I don't
Big
think
guy.
so, no, yeah.
Yeah, enormous guy, right? So this is maybe 25 years ago. And, I was based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And Johnny is doing a tour with a 4-piece, kind of like a Gary Primich kind of like, Texas kind of stripped down band where it's
Okay.
just a snare maybe, and a bass drum and a hi-hat, like that kind of sound and thing, right? And so the way the way I understood it, there's this guy Phil who owned a cool restaurant called the Flying Burrito, and he did the catering when I did the Harmonica Summit in 1998. And just a music lover and a harmonica player as well. And apparently Johnny had a gig egregiously postponed. In other words, basically the venue screwed him, and here he is on the road in North Carolina with no gig, right? So Phil says, no problem, come to my place. I'll hook you up, right?
Okay.
He says, but I want you to play with this friend of mine. He's this blah blah harmonica player, and then he plays with Howard Levy and all this kind of stuff, and you really want to hear him play. And Johnny, especially in those days, nobody, especially a blues guy, nobody wanted to hear about a guy that played with Howard Levy, as a guy you wanted to play with, right? So I knew that, and I don't consider myself, grounded in the blues. I mean, I'm one of the few harp players I've ever met that actually didn't learn from playing with the blues at all. Now, I'll tell you that. I mean, I was on a tropical island, and it was like the gods must be crazy, and the harmonica fell from the sky, and I just picked it up and learned how to make sound out of it and play music with the people around me. It wasn't blues. So the first recording I ever did in 1978 that I got paid for, I played in fourth position, because that's what it was going to sound best in that recording, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
So Phil says I should come to the show, so I did, and he's trying to convince Johnny to to have me sit up, and Johnny don't want me to come up, and I know that Johnny don't want me to come up, and I'm fine with that. So I says, no, man, I'll just watch the show. It'd be great, Phil says, no, Paul, you got to play with Johnny, Johnny, you got to play with Paul. It's gonna be great. And Johnny feels obligated to Phil, and so, but the long and short of it is, so I got to play, right? So Johnny, continuing his path of I'm not going to play with this guy, he says, all right, I'll just play squeeze box, right? He played these Louisiana type of things, right? And so that's his way of saying I'm not going to play with you, which is fine. So I'm stuck in this situation, and there's a reason I'm telling you this, and I'll get to the punchline quick. So we start off, and first time around I don't play anything, right? And bands, I kind of hear what the band's doing because I never played with them. Second time around, I start playing the bass line, and everybody's head went on a swivel in the band, like that. Yeah. And big smiles went off in their face. And Johnny's same thing, big smile. We ended up jamming. He ended up putting the squeeze box down and playing with us and stuff. I'm just going to tell you, the bass is a great place for the harmonica to think about where I should be. And a good bass player thinks the way that we should think space-wise. And also sound-wise, it's exactly right below where we should be. So it's balanced.
Like everybody got their own space already.
Perfect type of way, yeah. And if you can understand where the bass is playing and and the shape of what the bass is doing, and you can start playing with that idea in mind, it works out really good. And I've known that, but that's a good example of how I learned that lesson and how Johnny and I became friends. And one time at a spa, Roscoe Selly, who's at the original Howard Levy harmonica sessions in 1991. It was Carlos Del Junco, Sandy Weltman, Larry Eisenberg, the Iceman, myself, Roscoe Selly were the main guys. Gary Green, world harmonica champion in 1992, and came in 1991. I mean, in 1992, the second year. So Roscoe wasn't going to spa, but he gave me $200 to buy drinks for people, and a lot of those drinks went to Johnny because hey, for a drink, I'll take it, right? But me and Johnny became great friends because of that. So there you go.
Yeah, that's really good. Sound shape is so important, and you can learn this but in many ways. Like for me, it was like mostly music production, I guess, and mixing.
Right.
That
Right.
gives you,
Did you
which is
start
something
that
that's
way?
like so important. Yeah, you notice that stuff is so important. Being on stage, playing with other people.
Right. Did you start with production?
Not
With
really,
music?
but I started pretty early on, and maybe like 2012. That was like the first year I got into music production.
Yeah.
There was a
Did you study
pianist.
it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I've been part owners in 2 recording studios, and I started, with the analog stuff, and then I ended up with a 24 track 2-inch with Dolby SR and stuff. And I was telling you before we started, I got into recording for a very harmonica specific reason. I was writing songs and stuff. I wasn't getting the opportunities to play the kind of stuff I wanted to play. Lots of people say, Paul, if I ever have something with harmonica on it, I'll call you. Well, the stuff that they would want to call me for is stuff that I wouldn't want to play on anyway, because I'm not really, again, if it's a blues thing, I'll gladly suggest somebody else that, will do a better job for them. I'm the guy that, I think producers are always looking for, that next great sound, and harmonica, has all the potential, especially from the great stuff that Howard Levy unleashed. I was showing you, I'm big on pedals and stuff. What happened is I started, writing songs that were, almost like little operas, and so harmonica was taking a lot of shapes and fulfilling a lot of musical functions, and I was starting to use delays and reverbs early on in the studio. And when I started playing that stuff live, I wanted to replicate it, and so I started, exploring pedals and stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the '90s, there was this the first harp group. I don't know what that is. Was called Harpel,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that was the first way harmonica players got engaged with each other.
But
That's
like, for
how I
how
first.
long does Harpel not exist anymore?
I don't know, but I haven't used it in a long time. But I first met Rob Paparazzi from that, and one of the things, there's a reason I'm going to tell you this. Rob put out a question one time. This is again in the '90s, right? And he says, what do we do as a community? And you actually had this conversation with Rohan, to get to get producers to to include us more. Ross Guerin actually had this conversation at Spa in San Antonio too, and my answer was write write songs and include harmonica and play it the way that you want to play it. Like, I have songs where I'm playing harmonica horn sections. I use organ sound a lot in harmonica. You heard that in Something to Believe, and there's an even better one. I didn't send it to you. I sent Konstantin some of the sessions that I did in Bremen, and I brought my pedal board there. It's only that big, it's beautiful, and it's right over there on the floor, actually.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Can people see that? Oh yeah, they can kind of see. Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of see it, right? I've got one of the sounds set up for you here. But anyway, so if we as a community, write and include harmonica in the ways that we think it can be used, it only takes one track. I mean, Peg of My Heart in 1958 or 59 or something sold 1 million records, and that was really what started all the harmonica clubs and harmonica bands, and
Oh yeah.
a whole generation of people wanting to play harmonica in that way. We're not talking about, this is pre-blues and stuff. And, it's only going to take one track on one, hit song that harmonicas really played that's going to unleash, harmonicas like the sleeping beauty, man. It's yet to be discovered, really,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and,
crazy if you just think about it. Like, just if you start out like covering like any song out there, also pop songs, yeah, you're most likely one of the first people to play this on harmonica.
Well, I'm talking about pop music, but You have to understand, pop music is literally music that gets put in front of the public and is popular. Back in the day, classical music was the popular music of its day. It wasn't rigid. There was improvisation. It was played in bars and stuff like that. All these blues songs that all harmonicas players hold so sacred from the 50s and early 60s maybe, they were not written as harmonica songs. Guys, they were popular, and My Babe or whatever, they had staying power because they were great songs. They had harmonica on it. That was an element of it. Harmonica players, this is something I try to tell harmonica players, think like a musician. Harmonica players, when they're included in a song situation, they're thinking, what's my solo going to be? How am I going to really, blow everybody's mind and stuff? Yeah. It's like a keyboard player or a guitarist or a bass player or a drummer's thinking, what's my part going to be? Think about how to musically play a part that makes sense, that's musical. And then, if there's solos from there, it comes because you've created a part that is embedded in the fabric of the music, and then you can extend that idea musically as some sort of solo. And honestly, to tell you the truth, solos are really not a thing in popular music anymore.
So
parts
true,
are.
yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to say it's not a bad thing, but if harmonica players want to be integrated in the world of popular music, and that's a broad stroke of anything that's on the radio that people will embrace, they've got to learn to think like other instruments and think about, how do I create a part that may or may not sound like a classical harmonica part that, is like, that's blues, country, or campfire that, right now, if a producer calls a harmonica player in, that's what he wants from you.
Yeah.
Right? And, to get yourself called in for something that, I've got this set up in my pedal board over there. This is like long reverb. I've been fooling around with long reverbs, discovering them as ideas, That's an idea. That's a part. It's a part of one of my songs, right? You play that part, and you integrate it into the fabric of the music, because that does integrate in the fabric of the music. If you play a distorted harmonica, bluesish type of thing, it's not going to work. It's not going to work in that kind of situation. That's why harmonica players aren't welcome in that kind of situation. And I'm not trying to be ugly about it, because there's lots of beautiful things in our traditional places of strength that really work and are beautiful. But if we want to be seen and heard and be a part of something else, number one, of course, you have to understand music. And I just, in the Harpfest, in Todd Parrott's Harpfest, I just taught a seminar of, it's called It's All Do Re Mi, and I'll tell you a little bit about that if you want.
Oh, okay, yeah.
About harmonica players' pathway to music, to real understanding musical ideas. So you've got to understand, of course, where to play and how to play. Just understanding, that, playing, playing a pentatonic scale, arpeggiating the sixth instead of playing the seventh there. And if it's not a blues type of situation, you've just basically taken yourself off of the session.
Yeah.
Because that's not welcome there. It doesn't sound good, but you play that in something like this. It's quite beautiful, and it could work if it's that works within, the context of what you're trying to play. And I could set up other sounds there. My organ sound, of course, is my fave. But the idea is that if there's going to be a place for us in popular music, then we have to first understand, if there's a chord structure that doesn't have, blue notes in it, then don't play blue notes. You have to understand that. And, if, and you also have to understand how to incorporate using the harmonica, which is an amazing instrument, an amazing sound, but, colored in different ways. I mean, guitars and keyboards have all these different sounds, and it's perfectly okay for them to sound all the different ways that they sound.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Tremolo sound on a guitar. It's freaking beautiful, man. But it's not the way an acoustic guitar sounds. Oh my gosh, you're playing something different. No, you're not. You're playing something that works for that song. So if we're going to find a place for ourselves in that kind of music, which everybody says they want, well, then you got to do things about it. I'll tell you about music stuff. I used the keyboard there, and I'd have to get up and get my melodica to show you that. It would break the spell here, but I'll show you something else quickly. Let's say you're in a session with people, right? And a chart comes up, right? And I'm not talking about jazz. I'm not talking about swing. But it's not a blues chart. It's not a 1-4-5 type of thing, right? So it's a popular song, whatever it is. Maybe it's a 1-6-2-5 or whatever. With a 2-5. With a 2-5 to the 4 chord or something like that, So you got to understand stuff like that, right? Anyway, the first thing I'll do, and I will tell you, I think of everything as a C harp, right? In a keyboard, it's just the white keys. I do that because you don't want to complicate things for yourself. I don't want to be in a key of D flat and have to think what the fourth is of D flat. It takes a moment for me. I can do it. Do re mi has certain rules to it, and we can all count to 7. We can all count to 8. We can count to 11. And we can do that, but it takes time. I don't want to be the guy in the room, the harp player that doesn't know what he's doing, right? So here's what I do, and it takes 2 minutes. First thing I'll do is I'll take the chart and I'll just number it. Numbering basically is, what's the chord tone? What's the number of the chord tone? Yeah. You understand what I'm saying, right? And, if I was in a room full of harp players that may or may not know this, there's steps I take before this, but for our purposes, let's just do it this way, right? The next thing I'll do is I'll arpeggiate each chord, right? So that'll give me the 1, 3, 5, and 7 of each chord, right? That's a nice framework to work in, right? The next thing I'll do is I'll play a pentatonic scale, which is great and something easy we all understand. That gives me the 2 and the 6th, right? So all you got left is the 4th. Any harp player knows what a 4th is, especially if you're playing in cross harp. So there it is. In 2 minutes, I've got the whole thing. The next thing I'm going to do as we go through is I'm going to listen to the bass, because the choices the bass makes, again, are really helpful to the harmonica player, because the bass has to do things that tell you the shape of the song, right? And the second thing, and it could be the first depending on, how it goes, is listen to the vocalist. Because if there's a chord that has extensions that are surprising, augmented or whatever, something like that, which is, has a 4th instead of a 5th. It usually has to do with the melody or some kind of passing tone or something. Yeah. But that gives you an opportunity, because again, I'm a harp player that's looking. I consider myself a line player. I don't, I've been playing harmonica for 51 years. In my youth, when I was your age, let's say, right? I'm 72 now, so it's surprising.
When you were Rohan's age, maybe.
But yeah, right. I probably played, I certainly played a lot of notes, and I played as fast as I could and played the high notes and tried to play as flashy as I could. And back then, I was considered a flashy player, right, for a time. At this point, first of all, you and your cohorts, and the Howard Levy's and Joe Flisco's of the world that have created, this army of kids that, are growing up. It's like, I liken it to like the 14-year-olds that can play Charlie Parker solos, at speed, right? I mean, what did Charlie Parker, who died at the age of 36, have to go through to figure out how to play that way? And these kids, can play that way. And it was just great. I'm not castigating it at all, but, for me and where I'm thinking these days, I'm thinking completely within the terms of what do I do that works for the song? So I'm in that situation there. So I'm thinking melody, and if there's anything odd that sticks out, it means that there's something in that melody where there's an opportunity to stick out. Because as a production person, they're not going to give you many chances to stick out. You can, as a harmonica player in the blues, you've got your solo and you're going to be loud and stuff. If you go to a studio, engineers only know two things. They only know Dylan and Little Walter, or Butterfield. That's the only two sounds that they know. And chances are you're going to be stuck with the Dylan guy, right?
Exactly.
Oh, I got this SM57, I got this great harp thing. You're going to sound great. Man, that's not what I want. Or you're going to have this ugly, distorted thing there. Most of the time, music that I want to play, there's no room for either of those things. Neither of them sound good. Howard Levy used to be very frustrated in the early Flecktones records because harmonica has to get the timbre for our instrument right. You have to there's a certain line. If you're below it, then you've lost it. If you have to be above that line to where the color is there and you're present in the mix.
Yeah.
Right? And to do that, you have to fit and you have to, in the producer's ears, you have to play something that they go, wow, I want that shape and that color there at that moment.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Right? So that's kind of where that stuff is as far as I'm concerned. Right? We can, ask me whatever questions you want. I know you have some questions, but, the question of where we are as harp players as a community and what to do about it, those are the first steps you got to take. And if you're not willing to take those steps, don't be frustrated or annoyed or bitter when you find yourself not being invited to play in other situations. You're not making yourself available. When I came up, it wasn't like it is now where, everybody is holding your hands. Oh, you could take this step and this is wonderful. And that's great, as I say. But when I came up, nobody would show you anything.
Yeah.
Nobody would tell you anything.
I mean, for me, it was just like golden age of YouTube and Adam Gasso, Jason Ritchie,
That stuff was there. And Jason Ritchie came to me when he was 19. I don't know if you probably don't know this. And it's really a sad story in that he was 19. He was living in Raleigh for a while. And this guy, Zig Zeller, who's a blues player, he was a friend of mine and living around here. And he said, this kid wants to meet you, because he knew that I had met Howard Levy and stuff. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And I feel really bad about it at the time. Who knows? I was dealing with stuff. My son ended up passing away. And dealing with drugs and stuff like that. I don't know what prevented us from meeting, but years later, we became, I think, really good friends. And I wrote this song about Jason Ritchie, and he and I, keep in touch and stuff. But we never met at the time. But at that time, people began to start sharing stuff. My first harmonica teacher, the first person I ever met that ever said, okay, I'm going to show you something, was Howard Levy. I'd already been playing 16 years, and I wanted to play harmonica like a saxophone. And again, I didn't have any formal training. I didn't know anything about the blues. Honestly, when I heard the blues records and stuff, I liked Little Walter and stuff. I liked Sonny Boy Williamson's songwriting and vocals, but most of the blues stuff I heard, and this is not the way I think now, but it was the way I heard it back then, I thought it was too much playing. I thought that they just played all over everything, and it just sounded like a lot of noise to me. And I wasn't interested. The harp players I was interested in were Stevie Wonder, of course, and that's where I learned to play first position boogie on Reggae Woman, and Lee Oscar, because he played with lines with a band. And this guy that I heard, it's a crazy story. Johnny Paycheck had a few tracks with this guy that played beautiful melodic parts. The guy's name, I looked on the record, we had records in those days. It was a guy named P.T. Gazelle. And I just figured he was like this, this Nashville country harp player, and just a studio guy. In 2002, I think it was, Spa was in Dallas. And Jelly Roll Johnson, who was a good friend of mine, beckons me to come over, he says, Paul, I want you to meet this friend of mine. He used to play harmonica. He's been out of it for 20 years, and he kind of one day Googled himself and found out that he had 50,000, hits and whatever happened. And then his name's P.T. Gazelle. P.T. Gazelle, oh my gosh, like that. And, that's what happened. He, for his marriage, which I understand, I've been married 41 years, and I had to take a step back from certain things to keep the marriage together, So he pulled back from being on the road and stuff, and then one day he Googled himself and found he had 50,000 people asking whatever happened to P.T. Gazelle, right? So he came back, and he always had this melodic thing, right? He could play swing by ear. He's not musically trained, and so he wanted to, see what was going on. So he asked me and Roscoe Selly to show him about the overblowing thing, and we did. He decided that wasn't for him, and he ended up with the half valve thing, and ended up doing it, But so those were the guys that caught my ear, and I was interested in. I always had this thing like that, and so when I met Howard, what happened is I heard the first Flecktones record, and after about 30 seconds, I go, holy shit, this guy did it. This guy figured out how to play like a saxophone. I mean, I had started to play chromatic, and
Oh, okay. So that's something you still do?
What's that?
Is that something you still do?
Well, after I learned to play diatonic chromatically, honestly, and there's a lot of chromatic things that are going on that are really kind of cool, but to me, and has to be, there's no way it's going to sound respectful, so I apologize. But at the time, the way that I thought is like playing chromatic was like driving a pickup truck, and playing diatonic was like driving a Porsche. I wanted to drive a Porsche. I mean, I was your age. That's the way I felt about it, right? And after I learned to play diatonically, all the notes, I just wanted to work on that. But I actually have one of the original Frank Juan chromatics, that he made for Stevie Wonder. Yeah, because I grew up in Hicksville, and Frank Juan was my dad's neighbor, and he introduced him to me one day. I was on the road, and I'd come back year after year, well, every few years maybe, and he'd say, Paul, you should meet this Chinese guy I know. He plays harmonica. I go, yeah, sure, Dad, right. And then I'd be gone another couple of years. And so one day I walked down there, and I knock on the door, and it's Frank Wong. And he was head of custom harmonica division at Hohner. Hohner was located in Hicksville, this little town on Long Island, where Billy Joel grew up. I played stickball with Billy Joel when I was a kid, right? So Frank adopted me as a brethren, because I was this exotic guy at the time, And he took me to this lecture he did at that library, and I'll never forget. He goes, in China, no chromatic harmonica. We play two diatonic harmonica a half step apart, and he demonstrated unbelievable facility. Yeah. He and his brother Chamba, there was like sibling rivalry between them. Chamba just developed in 2016, and he got all this attention. Chamba was like the rock star, and Frank was the dutiful, he got married, had a couple of kids, and had a job, and so he wasn't the rock star. And there was sibling rivalry between them. So he's down in his basement working on his idea of chromatic harmonica, and he ended up with the brass harmonicas that Stevie Wonder played, And so I have one of them, and diatonic prototypes. Me and Matt Cat are the only people I know that have that, right? So if again, I don't want to leave the thing here, but my house, we're moving, so everything's in boxes. You can see the boxes are over
Okay.
there. And you can see they're over there. Yeah, there's the boxes. All right, so I'd have to go look for my chromatic somewhere. But anyway, so I heard, so I played chromatic. Then I started playing silver flute, which I've got sitting around here somewhere. And then I cut my lip and I started playing alto saxophone, which I'll tell you is actually how I finally figured music out. But I'll tell you this for a second. So none of them really gave me my breakthrough with music. I started studying music theory the old-fashioned way, looking at charts and stuff, and there was a lot of smudges on pieces of paper, and it just wasn't working for me, So the Flecktones were playing in the city I was living in, Baltimore, at the time. So I went to see him. It was on Max's on Broadway, and me and Howard years later took a picture in front of Max's because that's where we met, And I saw him before the show walking down the street. I go, Howard Levy, how do you do that like that? And it's like a slow motion Bugs Bunny, where he turns around, and he's like, oh, okay. And he pulls out his A-flat Golden Melody because he always has that in his pocket. Yeah. Starts talking. He ended up talking for 3 hours. I show him all the stuff that I knew. And, everything, every time I played him, somebody goes, yeah, that's pretty good. And then he shows the reasons why it's not really good, I'm thinking to myself, well, this guy, I guess he doesn't think I'm very good, And at the end of it, he goes, you're really pretty good and you're really different. I mean, I've never really heard anybody play like you. You should come to this thing I'm doing, right? And it was the original West Virginia workshops in 1991. And that's how I met him, and that's how we did it. The next week, I met John Popper for the first time. And as I told you, I was there when Howard Levy gave John Popper his first harmonica lesson, which was the Horde Tours. You ever hear of the Horde Tours? HORDE. I forget what the acronym is, but it was the Blues Travelers with the Flecktones.
I see.
Yeah, bunch of other, of those kinds of jam band type of things. And Howard and John had never met, right? And so I'm in the dressing room, right? And here's a funny thing. I'm back in the day, I was a masseur, right? I made my money doing that way, and I was really kind of world class at it. It's one of those things I was just really good at. I was masseur for the American Dance Festival, so I worked on all the famous dancers in the world. You ever see that Annie Leibovitz photo with the dancer naked on top of a skyscraper in New York City? That was David Parsons.
Mm-hmm. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, so I worked on guys like that. He was a Paul Taylor dancer. So anyway, there's a show, a concert. I was actually with Alan Holmes, who was a well-known.
Yeah.
You know about Alan? Okay, so me and Alan we're in the audience, and then I get this runner comes to get me. Says Howard needs you backstage. Bella hurt his shoulder, and he needs somebody to help him. So I go back there. So I'm working on Bella Fleck, I'm working on his shoulder. I've got his shirt off, and I got him on his side, and I'm working on his shoulder, right? And shoulder and his forearm. In comes John Popper with his guitarist, and they have this like bejeweled sword. It was worth like $50,000, right? And so Bella gets up, and John, like very theatrically, presents the sword to him as a gesture of solidarity for the Horde Tour, right? So that's great, right? So I go, Bella comes back, I'm working on him, and then John sits down at a table with Howard and starts giving him his harm. He says, Howard, okay, it's time for my lesson. And this was like, I know that this is harmonica history right here. So yeah. I'm sitting working on Bella, and they're like 10 feet away. So I tell Bella, okay, just let that sit that way. And I go over there and I'm sitting there listening like that. Bella Fleck, he's not a mellow guy, he's got an edge to him. He's a New York guy, and I'm a New York guy. And he's not happy. He's kind of quietly fuming there. So I go back to him, do a little bit more work, then go back to the table with John like that, right? So that's how that went. After the show, I see John backstage. He goes, man, I felt really ignorant like that. Ignorant. He said, ignorant like that. I go, yeah, that's all right. We all do like that. And that's how we met like that. I'll tell you one other thing. I'm keeping talking here, but I hope this stuff is okay. But this has harmonica relevance. So I told you I learned how to play. I cut my lip playing flute. I cut my lip picking apples. I picked apples for 8 years when I was living in Key West and wanted to get away from the decadence. So I could go up to Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and I pick apples, make a few $1,000s, and get out of the decadence. You know, it is in the '70s, so there was plenty of decadence, right? And one time it's autumn in Massachusetts. You know, it's cold, and my lip starts getting dry, and I'm chewing on my lip like an idiot, right? And I ended up cutting my lip, and a scar grew right where my third octave embouchure is, and to this day it still affects it. You know. So anyway, so at the time though, I gave up the harmonica and started playing alto saxophone. So alto saxophone is an E flat instrument. You know what that is? What that means? Yeah, you do, right? Tenor saxophone is a B flat instrument. To people that don't know it, if they're playing a C scale, which is, you know, no sharps, no flats, all the white keys on a piano, what would come out concert-wise would be on a tenor saxophone would be the key of B flat. Alto saxophone would be the key of E flat, which is a little mind-bending, but it's just the way it is, right? Again, music has rules, but they're not hard rules. They're do, re, mi. It's just do, re, mi comes out in E flat instead of C. So if somebody's playing C on a piano and the band is playing the key of C, I'd be playing in the key of E flat. Something like that. So anyway, the band I'm the only white guy in an R&B band, right? And I play some harmonica and stuff, which was great. But I'm mostly, you know, as in most things, I got the gig because I could play saxophone, right?
Okay.
And I could sing, right? So I'm doing this stuff. And the band is playing in easy guitar keys, mostly Stand By Me, stuff like that, which, you know, was pop music of the time. It wasn't, you know, an oldies thing like it would be today. This is the real thing, and it's really happening, and people are doing their slow dancing, and it was pretty steamy, right? And so, you know, when they're playing in A and E, I'm playing in C sharp and F sharp and C sharp, right? And I'm like feeling sorry for myself because those are the keys that have the most, you know, uneasy things to do instead of just playing simple, easy fingering and stuff. And I'm feeling sorry for myself, right? After a while, I start realizing, you know, and I think what happened is, again, I discovered pentatonic scales, right? Which are, you know, 5-note scales, and they sound like that, easy on the ear, and you start identifying when you're playing in a key, oh, if I can do that, I know where I am, right? And that's kind of good information, especially if you're a harp player and you want to learn how to get out of getting stuck having to play the flat seventh. You know, there's the 6 right there. So that's sort of the gateway drug to playing popular music and playing music other than the blues, is learning how to understand how to play off the 6th instead of 7th. But anyway, we're back to the saxophone in E flat. So I'm realizing after a while, you know, it's the fingering is awkward and strange, but after a while, it's not that difficult. So I say, first I probably figured out how to play 5-note scales. Then after a while, I realized, this was my big epiphany with music theory, it's all do, re, mi. It doesn't matter that I'm playing in these difficult keys on paper. It's just do, re, mi. This is the key I'm playing, and it's da 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 like that. And that was my big epiphany. And that's what I teach harmonica players is, it's not all about the names of the stuff. It's about, you already know it. If you're playing harmonica, and especially if you're playing with other people, you already understand what things sound like, and you understand what sounds good. You might not understand when not to play your flat 7th, but that's only because you've been indoctrinated with the blues. But you already understand what things sound like, and you know, to be able to quantify it in terms of music theory is just the way that musicians communicate. You know, it's like going to Paris and trying to order lunch. Remember, they don't speak English very willfully. So if you don't speak French, you know, you're going to probably have a hard time.
Bad at French.
Exactly. So, you know, same thing in music theory. So, you know, harmonica players, myself included, I mean, I had terrible experiences with people being very unkind to me. But my experience is, if you go, and this is going back to having enough sense and enough responsibility to learn things that you need to learn so you can communicate with other musicians. And then, you know, I in no way, you know, purport to know everything about everything with music, although people think I play sophisticated or whatever. But I know what questions to ask. And if I don't know something, if somebody's playing, you know, a diminished chord over a 5 chord or something, and, you know, and I'm not sure why they're doing it, I'll ask them, and they'll show me, oh, it's because the singer's doing this and the bass player's doing this, and it actually substitutes this chord and it sounds like this. Yeah. Okay, yeah, then I understand that. And then musically, that gives me enough. But I ask the question in a way that the guy can answer it. You know, if you start playing something and you play a flat 7 over something, you know, over a 4 chord or something, you know, and because you think it's bluesy and, you know, it's not bluesy enough, well, guys are going to get frustrated and impatient with you. You know, they might just be assholes anyway, and that's sure. But my experience is the better a musician is, the better person they usually are, you know, because they understood what it took to get there. You know, the idea that, you know, that somebody's better and there's somebody worse. Somebody I once knew that he just passed away a couple of years ago that I very much admired as a musician. I was way behind him, right? And he said, Paul, you know, I said, you know, what do I need to do to get better so I'm more like you know? Because Paul, you know, you're exactly like me, and I'm exactly like you. It's a receding horizon. You know, we're all in the same place, you know. Wherever you want to be in life and in music, it's just beyond what you can see, wherever you are. So, you know, you've got to be where you are and inhabit that place and figure out what, you know, your next step is before you can get better. I was talking with Shane Sager at Harpfest, and I was telling him, yeah, I've known him for a couple of years. I thought it was more than that, but it's probably only a year or two. But he's getting better. You know, each time I see him, I could see that he's getting more instinctive, and you know, it's very interesting to me. And I said, you know, the thing about that's really interesting to me is, you know, the better you are at something, the harder it is to get better. You know,
that's true.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that, because I mean, it's easy, you know, if you're 50 pounds overweight and you say, well, I'll just drink, you know, I'll drink instead of drinking 6 beers every night, I'll drink 2 beers, you know, right? Okay, that's great, but you know, if you're 150 pounds, which I am, you know, that's not going to help. Right? If that's what I want, you know, something like that. You know, to get better at something, you know, Howard always says, you know, what you have to identify is what your weakest link is and work on that. You know, we were talking about practice habits in the panel discussion at Harpfest, and I was saying, you know, I still to this day, I practice every day, you know, third hole draw bends, you know.
Okay.
You know, and, you know, people say you have to have a keyboard or something. I'm saying, you know, don't make it so complicated. The 6th hole drawer is the whole step bend. You know, you have no problem playing that in pitch. So that's a way for it to work.
True. Yeah.
A way to work on it like that. And, you know, I do that every day, you know, both, you know, tongue blocked and puckering and U-block, which is, you know, another embouchure. Because no matter how good you are, man, our instrument is our body. Harmonica is the only instrument that has no hands and no eyes. That's a Howard Levy thing. every, guitar player's got 10 fingers, it's got 2 eyes. A piano player, it's all literally in black and white. With us, everything that we do, we imagine. Everything that we do is we have to physically line up. I always tell people I think a trumpet is more aligned to how harmonica players think than saxophones or pianos and stuff, because they have three, they have what do you call them? I'm sorry,
just
right?
3 valves.
Yeah, they have 3 valves, and they have to get 36 notes out of 3 valves. So everything that they play is some combination of valve placement and embouchure. So they have to imagine that. Now they still have, the 3 valves that they can see and the 3 fingers that they can see, but they have to think things linearly like we do, especially guys like us that play more melodically, right? So, as harmonica players, we have to every day get in touch with how our body is. It's like being a singer. You have to. I as a singer, I do vocal exercises every day because your body is different every day, and if your body is your instrument, you have to understand where your body is and warm your body up. So if I'm going to play harmonica, the first thing that I do every day is work on the 3rd hole draw, just to see where my body is at and playing in a couple of keys. That's pretty simple. It's not, you're not thinking, boy, he's working on. No, I'm not doing that. You are, maybe, with me, I'm just trying to sound good, and I'm trying to start where I have to start to sound good. And that is, am I attuned to my instrument? Is my body attuned to, where my mind is, right? And am I receiving?
How does it feel to play today,
Exactly. Is my breath right, And that's where I start. So I've done a lot of talking, and I'm glad that I had something to talk about, because I'm not the usual guy that you have. Let's talk about playing, this blues or that. But I know you have some questions, so why don't you ask me some questions?
Yeah, there was also, this is just a comment by somebody in the chat. LK says, I don't speak music theory, and it is very limiting. I just play what I feel and hear inside. I was made fun of that I wasn't a real harp player, yet there I was playing and people liked it.
Yeah, and that's, number one, that's exactly true. When I teach my seminars about that, first of all, I came from the same place, and I was treated the same way. So I understand why. Again, what I try to teach people is, and I have a process where I actually show them how scales get developed and stuff. And again, it's all don't re mi. It's all stuff that you already know. So my answer to him is, yeah, you already know that stuff. If you want to play outside of the blues context, because the harmonica is set up perfectly for the blues, it wasn't set up to be a blues instrument. And this is something I like to tell, the Richter tuning, it was set up, in 1830s or something like that, originally. It was set up as a German band instrument for the popular music of its day. And it was set up to play German Umpa music. Like that, like that. So that was the music we set up to play, right? And that's fine. The way that harmonicas are set up in keys, so this is a key of D here. I'm just having it because it's easy. I don't know. I like D harps are like cheating to me because they're so easy to play and they're so easy. So easy to overblow and stuff like that. So if I'm going to show something like I was showing up, so I'm overblowing that stuff. Easy to demonstrate it. But so the way players played harmonica was the key of the harp, and using that now, just between you and I, the first 3 holes are basically chord function.
Yeah.
if you blow into the first three holes, if you ever wonder why, it's C, D, E, G, G, and it's repeated. If you ever wonder why they repeat the G, it's so you can have that C, E, G chord right there. You've got the chord. And also, why there's a B, it goes D, G, and B. We're talking about C harp here, right? That's the 5 chord there. It's the 5, the 1, and the 3, right? So you've got 1 and 5, bop, bop, boom, bop, bop, like that, set up for that. It's great. The harmonica, the way that we like to think of it and the way we play it, is a beautiful accident, and I'll try to say this in a way where people can receive it. This is, my wife would call this a Paul fact. I can't prove this. This is my belief and this is my thought. When the African Americans, not the African Americans, when the Africans, slaves, picked up a harmonica, during earlier periods, it's an instrument I can imagine was available. It was cheap, a penny, 2 pennies, a nickel, or, somebody would leave it lying around or whatever. But when they picked it up, it was like when I picked up the harmonica living, in the tropics. And this is a great question, and this is the question, so let's just answer the question because it's a great question. And it's what I do with my seminars, because it is the question, why aren't we invited? Why do people think we need to do this and I don't need to do it because I can do that, right? So when these guys pick this instrument up, they're not, thinking German Umpa music. They're hearing the music from where they came from, African scales, blues scales, right? Yeah. Sorry about that. See, I haven't really practiced today, so I'm not quite in there, right? So I did on the higher octave. Anyway, point being is that's the music that they're hearing. So now they're trying to figure out, well, how do I play it on this instrument? So one thing they did is, blues, we play the blues in what's called the Mixolydian mode. The characteristics, the main characteristics of the Mixolydian mode, and this is way too technical and beyond, where I start these kinds of things. But just for convenience sake in our conversation, it's characterized by a major third and a flat seventh, right? And if you play harmonica off of the 5th, which is what we do in cross up and blues, like that, right? It gives you immediately the major third. There it is, right? There's the 5th, and then you've got the flat 7th right there. So that's exactly how the blues are set up, and to make it even better, the Africans, without anybody telling them they can't do it, and this is how Howard Levy figured out overblows. Nobody told him he can't do it, right? He told me in 3 months he broke a bunch of harps and figured out how to do it. So they figured out bending, right? So there's your flat 7th there. So they got all that stuff there. So the harmonica didn't start out that way, but it became that way because they adopted for their use and for the kind of music that that they heard in their heads. Yeah. So that's an amazing thing. But again, so it's perfectly set up for that. My harmonica origin story. I was 21 years old. My dad had harmonicas when I was a kid. He played like Red River Valley, but he never taught me anything. I'd sneak in, try to blow through the things and couldn't do anything. When I was in college, I was going to school in Buffalo. I had the Black Mountain Poets there. You probably don't know what that is. It's a whole movement, Gregory Corso, guys like that, poets that were in this commune in Black Mountain, North Carolina. And then decades later, they became, like an esteemed thing, like the good old days, right? John Barth, and things like that. So I went to study with them. Poetry's always been my thing. And so a friend of mine and I went to this party, it was at this guy's house. It turned out that the house was Spyro Gyra. They were from Buffalo. You ever hear that band?
Okay.
One of the great fusion bands, of the 70s, right? And I ended up knowing them a lot better because this girl knew them, and they would go to Key West in the winters, and I'd hang out with them. I went to their first show at Carnegie Hall, and then went to the after hours party. So my friend at this party had a harp, and in one of the songs he got up and jammed with him. I was really impressed. I wanted to do that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But he wouldn't teach me, and so I'm 18 then, so I'm 21. I'm living in Key West. I'm living with this girl, right? She's a little older than me, and she has a kid, and the guy that she was married to played harmonica and flute and sax. I knew him, Jackson. And so the kid had a couple of harps laying around. So it's 3 a.m. in Key West in August. Beautiful night, of course, because that's the only time of the day it's really nice and cool, And she and I had the conversation, which basically she was going to break up with me, right? I was heartbroken and devastated, right? And so I'm miserable. I walk out the door, and there was a couple of harmonicas on the table. I grabbed one of them. I'm sitting in the front porch, and I put the harmonica in my mouth. I go, like that, right? And that's everybody's harmonica origin story. All of a sudden you got that sound come through. Point being is that it's set up perfectly for that. And I got into it, and within 6 months I was the harp player in Key West, and I'd play with all the touring bands in the third set, Big Twist and the Mellow Fellows. That's how I learned how to play. But point being is that's how harp players learn how to play, because it feels so good and it's right there. So, of course you sound good, and the guys that tell you that you don't sound good, again, we've all had that bad experience. At this point in my life, I have a little bit more sympathy for how other guys perceive us, but it hurt me just as bad when they treated me that way, And I just basically got through it because I did want to play other stuff, and I did play other stuff, and I figured it out myself. But again, when you talk to other musicians, or you're in other situations and you don't know enough not to play really bluesy stuff and music that's not really bluesy, they just can't handle it. They don't have the patience for it. And some of them don't handle it well and aren't very kind about it. But, if you want to change that, you can hope that you meet somebody who's more understanding and sympathetic and helps you, but let's face it, I don't think that the world, I've got a pretty positive perspective of the world, but I don't think the world cared much about Paul Messenger, doesn't care much about you, Konstantin. You have to care about yourself, right? And, you have to make yourself a person that people care about or have interest in for a reason, and you have to do that by yourself. And if you want to not be in that situation, then you have to take a few steps. They're not hard steps, because if you already sound good and people like the way you sound, then you already know everything you need to know about how to sound good and how to be musical. But you need to understand how to be musical in forms of music that aren't set up perfectly for blues like that, right?
Yeah.
It's a long-winded answer, and I apologize, but I hope that gives you your answer without breaking it down exactly. All right? You get something else?
Nice. Okay, hope that was helpful. Yeah, of course, man, we talked about so much stuff already, but for those hearing about the Elvis show for the first time, so I told the viewers in the beginning that this is an audio project by you. How would you describe what it is and why you created it for the audience?
Well, thank you. That's a good question. Nobody except a few of my friends really know about it. Howard Levy calls it my magnus opus.
Oh yeah, that's a good name.
Well, that was 25 years ago. As I say, as an artist, the art form, the only art form I've really been taught in classes in is poetry. You know, and I'm a studied English person, you know, and I've, you know, voracious reader and stuff. Something I think I have in common with Shane Sager. He's a really smart, he's, in your generation, he's a really smart, interesting, well-read, curious person. I really like those attributes. And I in what I just said, it's those attributes that I think are most valuable. And again, you know, it's really painful to be left out or to be treated that way or not be respected. But sometimes you have to have respect and understanding of where other people come from. And the fact is that most people you meet are not I just assume they're not going to be self-observant. You know, they're not going to understand why they do the things they do. And I'm blessed with understanding those kinds of things. So I'll help them in interactions through that. It's kind of simple. It's, let's say I'm walking down the street in Hamburg, and let's say we did meet or didn't meet. I see Konstantin walking down the street. Konstantin, hey! And you just walk down the street. Don't look at me. Don't say anything to me. I've got choices now. I could think, guess he didn't see me. And I just walk down the street and nothing else comes of it. Or I could think, why didn't he say hello to me? Is there something, you know, did I do something? Or what an asshole, you know, like that. So next time I see you, there's context and I want to know what happened, right? Or it could be like nothing happened and it's like it didn't exist. You have a choice. You have a choice in life how you handle those situations, but you more than likely have to take responsibility for yourself. So anyway, with myself and my harmonica journey, you know, I've kind of lived on the outlines, outskirts of it, I'd say. You know, it's being blues type of guy. There's a big welcoming place for you and also a lot of competition. I'm the guy that you call when you don't want to have the blues player, which is great too. You're that guy too, I assume. Of course, you could play 50,000 more notes than me, and you're a wonderful player. I hear people talking about where you're at, and you know, as a guy that you know, as a model for that, and you know, you didn't get there by just taking bows. You got there by doing the work, and I appreciate that and applaud it. For myself, you know, the most important thing is to understand your own sound and understand what you're good at and where you should be. You know, where my strength is and where my real passion is in the language. And as a songwriter, I really don't care about the music. I care about what it's about. You know, and people ask me, well, what's your genre? I go, well, it's really a question of what the song's about. Yeah. And that will determine the genre of music. And I'm a style junkie. There's something about every style of music that makes it what it is, and you have to understand that, and you have to be able to cover that. You know, I've got this song, "The Truth Will Do." It's a country song, and I'd never really written a country song, and I wrote this great line. I thought, so, you know, it's a cool country line stuff, right? But I didn't know anything about playing country licks, so I called Todd Parrott up. I said, Todd, you know, can you play the parts here? So Todd said, sure, you know, and so he played that, and, you know, then, of course, I could steal all of his licks, and, you know, I understand how to play that way, so I can play that song now and stuff, you know. But, you know, you have to understand what you know, what you need to know, and what you don't know about things. So, you know, I've had this long journey with language, and at a certain point, and I'm going to tell you, I finished the original Elvis show, which was a story about this guy that played saxophone with a Elvis impersonator review in Eastern North Carolina, right? And a pretty strange story. I don't know, it's a dozen pieces, 15 pieces, something like that. And I finished it January 8th, 1990, okay. Right? Elvis's birthday, actually. So, and I had other collections of poems, and I figured I would release something with, with these different collections. It'd be interesting as poetry. And I put it out there in the poetry world. I didn't like the responses I got. I just didn't feel like it was going to work for me, and I had other things that were going on that I didn't have to worry about it. So I just kind of put it in my pocket, and through the years I kept working on it, and I started integrating these things to where I took the poems that I had these childhood poems, I had these Key West poems, I had these poems about this kid that I knew that committed suicide, and each one of them were anywhere from a half a dozen to 20 pieces, and I started integrating them and started creating amalgams with characters and stuff. And it went that way for a good while. And then I put it out there again into the poetry world. And again, I didn't like the answers I got. I got to try to get an agent. And I just didn't like that it was so pigeonholed, and it was just not really anything was really going to happen. But it was in those days that Howard saw it and thought, wow, this is a big thing. This is like your big lifelong, big series art thing. And yeah, so it became sort of this thing where it started in the 50s. And I was really proud that I took it from this like sort of on the road thing to where it became about these two guys and went on the road from 50s to 60s to 70s to the 80s to the 90s, and what happened to them and having families and that kind of stuff, right? And then election 2008 happened, and it's sort of, my big overriding theme in a lot of things I write is the idea of America. I'm a history nerd, and I'm going to try to finish this in a good shape for you here, but I have to give you a little bit of background. And so in order to kind of really make that current, I ended up writing a bunch of pieces about, the election of the first black president and how America was on its way to this great, role model of diversity and, interconnected society, which, was a great idea of America, we thought at the time, right? And of course, that didn't quite happen that way. And then after that was 9/11. And then after that was January 6th. And after that was the pandemic. And I kept writing and writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And during COVID, everybody had some time during COVID, right? I told you I bought about 50 pedals in reverb.com for 20 to 50 bucks. And did a lot of research on what worked with harmonica, and that's one project I did, but the other one I did was really work on this writing project here. So I ended up being a 110-page poetic novella, and I ended up kind of shaping it like Homer's Odyssey, except it was an American Odyssey, right? Yeah. And with the sirens, there were girls in the band, they became the sirens, and things like that. And I found that because, in an overarching way, it was about the idea of America, that all these songs that I've recorded, I have about 70 songs in BMI registered, and they're these big operatic pieces. Some of them, some are simpler, like that Truth Will Do there, which is in the piece. And I realized that these songs, I don't know if you listened to the beginning of the Elvis show, I've got one of my big songs, America. If you could play it, it would be fantastic. But
I definitely can, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just finish saying it like this. So I found that I could put these pieces in between the poems, and it became like this lifelong work. And then I started putting, sometimes they would just be edits of music in between from these songs, and then I started filling the pieces in. Like I've got this girl that worked on all my stuff, that she creates these musical parts. She became the Sirens. I did 24 hours of studio time with her. I've got this friend that I went up to Tulsa a few years ago in Spa, so people saw us play there. He ended up doing 30 hours of incredible original musical works that filled the stuff in. So that's what we've done. It's become this enormous thing. It's coming. The people I'm working with, the studio owners, they're Grammy voters, and they're going to submit it for a Grammy in an audiobook. We'll see what happens. So if you could play the beginning of it, it'd be great. Play it through the first couple of pieces. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, because people are going to hear it now. Like the harmonica itself also is like very narrative. It's like
um,
almost a character.
there's never been so much harmonica in something, and believe me, I don't think anything like this has ever been done. I mean, we'll see if there's an audience from it, but I'm used to good things happening. But there's tons of harmonica in it. Yeah, if you're a harmonica nerd,
Let's see if you can also hear this when I'm playing it out.
Excuse me? Are you going to put something to start at the beginning?
Yeah, let's see if you can also hear if I'm playing it out, but people are going to hear it.
Okay. I can't hear it. Oh, here it is. The Elvis Show, an American Odyssey. New American myth and assorted other songs about the idea of America. Book 1, The Wailing. For our times, too, I share these songs with you. And young you. Who knows? Take me to the land of the madmen and the poets. Take me to the Waffle House at 4 a.m. and you will know America. You will find America. 1982, my 29th birthday. 2 guitars, 12 Hershey bars. Bass, sax, boom stands wedged between 6 legs. Les Paul, custom, electric, between the window and Robbie Boston, the bassist, and me. Richie from Raleigh, the guitarist, fat between the 2 feathered bleach backups in the back seat in a blue Pinto, sailing forth, getting to Goldsboro to do the Elvis Show. Past Good News Missionary Baptist brick disco juke joints with Coca-Cola signs, soybean, corn, tobacco, pine barrens, the Tar River, Tarboro, Miss Donnie's Carolina Kitchen, bathrooms by Bonnie, Krispy Kreme, barbecue, Burger King, flat, then flatter and flatter in a blue Pinto. 2 guitars, 2 Hershey bars, 2 avian bleach backups in the back seat, Richie from Raleigh the guitarist, Robbie Boston the bassist, and me in God's country, sailing forth, getting to Goldsboro to do the Elvis Show. Right before Elvis died, I had a dream.
So that's like the first 3 minutes of it.
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
Yeah. The cry is slowly fading in. I mean, the harmonica, it's not like just playing solos on this. It has more of a narrative role. Like, how do you approach playing the harmonica when it's not just playing solos, but rather storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more harmonica in there. That actually was Joe Falisco right there.
Okay.
Way back when I made that album, this was in 2014, Joe came down. We did a show, my band and him and Eric. They were just getting started, and he went to the studio and took about an hour and played about 10 different solo harmonica tracks, and I used a few of them in that, and then I also have a few of them in this piece too. So it's a big deal. But this harmonica used in that, in that way, throughout, and it's very much part of the fabric of the music. That's how I think of harmonica. I think of it as an instrument, So thank you for that. Thank you for playing that. Yeah, it's just the beginning.
Like, what's the process like building something like this? Is it like words first, music first, does it happen at the same time, sort of?
Well, I'll give you that answer in a greater songwriting way, because in this piece here, it was the words first. Yeah. And then I knew that I had to have, I thought it'd be a good idea to have, musical pieces in between the pieces. And then it turned into this whole thing that I can use all of my songs. It's become this, lifelong thing. So it really is my magnus opus now. But in a lot of my songwriting process, most of the time it's words first, and words and music happen at the same time a lot of times for me, and I can't explain how that happens. But a friend of mine once told me that an audio idea lasts about 10 seconds, so you better get it down. The idea of songwriting. And sitting in a room and say, okay, we're going to write songs. That's not the way it works. I just did a show last night with a guy named Wyatt Easterling, who was once head of A&R at Atlantic Records. And he spent about 30 years in Nashville doing song sessions. And the first one he ever did, he showed up and the guy said, okay, well, what kind of hooks you got there? And he didn't realize that you're supposed to bring in ideas like that. What you have to do is, when you have an idea, sing it into your phone or play it into your phone, and have a collection of stuff. And a lot of times with me, sometimes even in dreams, they come and then the melody comes right away, with it. So that's one way it happens. Once in a while, it's a musical idea. Sometimes on the guitar, which I don't play too much of these days. Sometimes it's on the harmonica, and then I'll write around that. But most, I'd say, anywhere from 75 to 95% of the time, it's words first. Okay. Then, they attract the right music for me. But to me, again, if I'm going to put something out, it's because it's something that I have to say. It's something that I have an opinion on, something I want to put out. And also, I'll say, again, if you want to do songwriting, understand popular music is not your enemy, it's your friend. Popular means that people care about, and want to hear what you have to say. You have to give them some sort of foothold. You have to write with what they call a hook, you've got to give them a foothold. You've got to have some sort of form that makes sense. It can't be so convoluted that they lose interest, right? So there's a lot to say about that, but I'm sure you're getting tired of me here.
But yeah, the harmonica is it's the perfect instrument to tell an American story too.
Absolutely. My thing is that there's just much more there, much more. And if we want our instrument, which I care about deeply, to be part of that American story, we have to adapt and imagine how it can be that way. And it is that way. Trust me, there's so much. Producers are always looking for the next great sound, like what I just played there, and you have to find ways to integrate that into the fabric of music that's not just solos, that sounds like that instrument that's going to be the instrumental hook for them. And they're going to say, yeah, I want that. That's going to, wow, what is that? And they're going to integrate it. And it's going to be on some song somewhere like that. And then everybody's going to want to do it. And yeah, you'll have your Steve Vais and Konstantin Reinfeld guys that can play all those notes and be virtuosos that way. But, there's only room for a few of those guys. The rest of us have to have more to our package. And I respectfully and gratefully and graciously acknowledge that. I'm not looking, that's not my role. My role is to tell the stories and create the fabric of it. And I do have the experience and understanding how to do it and the ability. There's not many harmonica players that can do that stuff that really know what they're doing, and I think I do. I know what I'm doing, and I know how to do it. Can I play? I listen to your stuff all the time, and I can't play. I could study something you do, and there's nothing I couldn't play. But, what it would take you to play and what would take me to play it is two different things. And other people might think that too. Understand that's okay. That's how you hear. One of my favorite stories in music is is Miles Davis going to Dizzy Gillespie, because he replaced Dizzy Gillespie in the original Charlie Parker band, right? And so he's going out, and I think this is as he was starting to play the first few gigs, but it could have been rehearsals, I don't know. But he says, Diz, I'm feeling really, and he's only 19, he says, I'm feeling really insecure because I can't play like you can play. I can't play those high notes lightning fast like that, how am I going to replace you? You're not like another story. And Dizzy Gillespie tells Miles Davis, he says, man, you shouldn't be playing that stuff. That's not how to replace me. That's not how you hear. You don't play that kind of stuff because you don't hear it that way. You hear it the way you hear it. And, that's what you should be playing. That's what you can play. You shouldn't be playing what I hear. You play what you hear. That's why you got hired for this, because, that's what Charlie Parker heard in your playing. Play what you hear. That's the last thing that we'll say to all these people out there. Play what you hear, but understand, if you want a foothold in this story moving forward, and it's not going to be in the already established country, campfire, or blues, then you've got to use your imagination. You've got to have a passion for it, and you've got to give producers and songwriters and yourself a foothold by having an imagination and a belief and a passion to take it that way. It's possible. It's inevitable. It can't not happen. Okay?
Yeah.
I hope I'm part of it. We'll see.
How about the people in the audience now who want to check out more from the Elvis show? And also, could you imagine a live version of this, like narration plus harmonica and ensemble?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. It's interesting, complicated. I just want to play my songs. I have so many songs that I've never been able to play all of them because I'm not a solo act, So let's say 70 songs, I've played 25, 30 of them. There's so many of them I want to play, but by the time I put something together and teach the guys, if I can add a few, that's great. I'm doing this, the reason I was in Hamburg is I did this project with Robert Carl Blank, who plays with Steve Baker in Live Wires, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy, that I toured with. And during COVID, here's a guy that's playing 150 shows a year, and all of a sudden he can't play anything. So he's writing songs, and one day I get this WhatsApp, because that's how you guys do everything, which is a great format. It says, Paul, I'm stuck with this. Is there anything you can do? And I need the bridges done, and I need some help with the chorus, and et cetera, et cetera. So he's great because he's very melodic. So he's singing everything that he wants, but he's like da da da, the things that he doesn't have. And he always has a couple of great images. So me, writing is what I do. So I knock it off really within a couple of hours. You go, wow. And then I start getting things like that. So after a while, there's a bunch of them. And after a while, I'm going, wow, I got a bunch of them too. So during COVID, we actually got him through Mexico. He had to stay in Mexico for 2 weeks, suffering for his art, in some Mexican resort town, where he ended up writing another song, which is, I don't know if you saw Between the Lines. That's on my website. That's a studio green screen thing that we did. So we ended up recording this project together with Ben Folfie's rhythm section, Robert Sledge, bassist. It was fantastic. Everyone that's heard it says the best thing I ever did. We never released it because we never got a chance to to tour with it because of COVID and stuff like that. So I finally said, look, it's one of my goals for the year. We got to do something about this. He goes, well, I need live video if I'm going to be able to get gigs, in Germany, right? So, yeah, right. So I said, all right, I'm going to come. Come during summer when, people are, less busy, right? It's when all you Europeans go on vacation and there's no gigs, right? Or less gigs. So I went there. I ended up playing at a Reeperbahn a couple of times and played a bunch of shows. Ended up with, a bunch of days with rehearsal and stuff. And then we went to Studio Nord in Germany, in Bremen, and did live video. I sent you a couple of them. They're pretty freaking good, right?
They are unlisted, right? When are you planning on putting them out too?
Well, that's the precursor to. I want to have a tour before I put it out. So
Okay.
we've got this. So that's why I did it. As of this week, actually, I've done the second bit of editing because it's not finished. I
Yeah,
sent
right.
you in process, right? But what I sent you is pretty close. It still has to be mastered in 4K. It's just rough stuff, but it's still pretty darn good. So I sent the audio tweaks to Gregor, in Studio Nord, right? He'll get to him next week. Then I'll talk to Robert over the weekend, see if he agrees with my last bit of tweaks. Then I'll do hopefully next week I've got more Elvis show studio work done next week. So I'll go back and I'll finish the studio stuff. Then we'll start releasing those things. But it's all so we can do a tour next year there, and hopefully we'll release it. And hopefully next year. The Elvis show is not done yet. You guys heard the first public hearing of it, and I'm proud of that. I'm really happy for you. It's 3 hours. And boy, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff, and there's a ton of harmonica in it. I mean, I wish you could hear these guys hear some more of it. It's just amazing the amount of harmonica in it. But there's also, again, there's other instruments because there are, believe it or not, other instruments that work too, right? But so that's going to be. What I want to do is I want to finish it this year and have it for Grammy submission, for next year. It'll be out next year, or maybe later this year, but I doubt if we'll move that quick because it's really not done yet. I've taken about a 3-week break because I did Harp Fest. I've been doing this editing for the Bremen stuff, so it takes time and studio time for that. Wanted to give my ears a rest, and then I put a few days in preparation for working with this guy White Easterling, which I probably should put a few more days of preparation in, but hopefully there'll be other shows for that. But some people like that, I think. But so starting next week, we're going to do our push to finish it. Yeah, I think that's the best answer I can give you, man.
Yeah, like
right?
this one might be really good to close this off. If harmonicas take like one lesson from your harmonica journey, what would it be?
Don't limit yourself. And it's hard. That's a hard thing to say because harmonica players will think of it in terms of blues or not blues. The harmonica, it's the harmonica giveth and the harmonica taketh away. That's a Howard Levy saying, and there's a lot of things about it that just strengths that haven't been revealed yet, and be part of that. If you want to be part of the great blues and country and campfire tradition, boy, there's incredible support and tradition there, and some of the highest level stuff that in our history, has been there. You don't, and aside from all the recordings of Little Walter and Big Walter and all those guys, but as I say, there's a whole. This is where I'm at. This is why I'm writing a 110-page poetic novella because it hasn't been done. There's limitations in that. Okay, maybe there might not be an audience for it. Again, you have to believe in yourself. Nobody cares about who you are and what you want until you make them care. And if you want somebody to care about you and what your vision is and what you hear, make them care. Be passionate about it, whatever format it is, whether it's blues, country, campfire, or something else. Make them care. There's no excuse. And during the Harpfest question and answer, this is the thing I finished on. There is, including yourself, there's support for any possible thing that you'd want to get better at in harmonica and learn about in ways that are unfathomable to me and how I came up. There's no excuse to accomplishing the next step of whatever you want to do. And I say it like that because that whole thing of you're either good or great or you're not good or great. I hate that divide. I think in this society, it used to be where everybody played a musical instrument. Every family played music together. Every family read music together, right? And now it's like you're either good and musical or you're not. It's a horrible thing, and it's soul shattering. You know, it's just not fair. And, you know, the one thing about harmonica is great. Remember, our instrument, more people play it than any other instrument, is because we all have that moment where it's like, and all of a sudden it comes to us, and we could do that. Once you've had that feeling inside of you, you know that it needs to be in your life, right? However it comes to you, whether it's studied, which I know nothing about, except now, of course, or, you know, you had that experience. But to make it something that gives you more opportunities, you have to believe in it, and you have to be honest and do the work to take whatever step you need to take. And you have to believe in yourself. It doesn't matter how many people tell you that you're not good enough or you don't matter and you're not worthy. You are, in whatever way it comes out, and believe that. That's what I would say. Okay.
Nice. Yeah. Hope this helps some people in the chat too. Yeah, because we got like some comments hinting in that direction too. But yeah,
you got any other questions from the chat?
It's more like commenting on what we talked about. So the question, like you just answered, like was hitting the right spot. I feel like, yeah.
Was it? It's good. That's what I believe. You know, but you know, have no doubt about it. The world does not care about who you are and what your aspirations are. You have to make them care. So don't get bitter about it. Don't be insecure about it. Don't have your feelings hurt. You know, you want to change that, then you have to change it in your room, inside your head, right? That's not very glamorous. It's not. And all of us have experienced it. I don't know what your background is, but you didn't come out and be this guy that you are. You're not. You know, you didn't come out of the womb that way. You had to sit down and start working on it, right?
Yeah.
And there's times where you feel like, no, I just can't do this. You know, it's too hard, and you have to believe that we all feel that way, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. So. Yeah, thank you for sharing your music and your vision with us. And to everyone watching, check out the links below. You can explore Paul's work on his official website, on Facebook and Instagram. Put the links in there. We got another harmonica challenge coming up on Sunday, Country Harmonica Challenge. So if you win, you can win one of the new country-tuned Marine Band Deluxe Steve Baker special-tuned harmonicas.
I just saw Buddy Green and Todd Parrott, Jamie Garner, Jerry Fierro. Boy, great country harmonica players. Holy shit. It was amazing. Yeah.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll keep you updated on the upcoming Hohner Live interviews.
Thank you, man.
After the World Harmonica Festival. I'm sure some of the people in the chat.
Say hello to Hank for me, Hank Shreve. Say hello to
Hank's gonna be there.
Deke Harper's gonna be there, right?
Yeah.
Say hello to all those guys for me. Okay, my friend.
Wonderful, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Have a nice evening. Thank you, Paul. Bye bye.
All right.
My lady, you know me, no forgive up on you never. Wanna be with you forever, 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 forever. Oh baby, where we they go, now forward and far, backward never. Them they pray, make we run down never, 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 never. I'ma get that low. Girl, you're the best I know. Our next move, they never know, they never know. When you go check, I know. Girl, you're the best I know. Our next move, they never